Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of AK Indie Gaming Show with your host StefenGalaxy and myself, Michael Kuhlman. What's up,
Hello.
dude?
Yeah,
Continuing on with the streams,
it's
uploading
true.
videos, doing the
Videos are up.
YouTubes, doing the Twitch
YouTubing,
clips.
Twitch clipping, YouTubing, live streaming, big beaming. We're
And
we're out there.
you're
Yeah.
having fun doing it, man.
I'm having fun, It's the streaming, you do a lot of weird shit on stream sometimes.
Yeah,
We got some weird ones under our belt. We got Pringle taste testing. We got
I love that stuff. I love,
ordinary sausage reviews. We got all sorts of stuff.
dude.
Pixel art streams.
When the camera turns on, you just like you just turn into like almost like a performer mode. It's fun, right? Is it draining
It's just
for
fun.
you?
It's just good time. Yeah. It's I spend a lot of time playing games anyway. You play them on stream. You just have a good time. Have some people chatting. It's always fun. It's been a good
You
time.
love that
Trying to get into
interaction.
the big YouTube game too. Oh yeah, yeah. The interaction's like the best part. When I
Yeah.
hear people talk about like streaming, like that they watch streamers but they like don't talk with chat, I'm like, why do you stream? Why are
Yeah.
you even live?
Yeah.
Just play by yourself at that point.
Yes, StarCraft 2. I know a lot about StarCraft 2. I've been following the game for like years and years and years. And the Twitch stream, the Koreans that didn't know any English would get on and just play K-pop and like silently just grind
Yeah,
StarCraft 2.
I guess that is the exception to the rule of interaction, is when you're like exceedingly good at your game and then you are putting on a show for everyone that's watching, and they're like, well, I don't expect these people to ever talk to me. I'm just here to watch like top 10 in the world in Overwatch or CS:GO or whatever. Which, to
Yeah,
each their own.
but
Depends on what you're there for.
the thing with StarCraft 2 is that even these people, even though these Koreans were the top of the top, they're the best in the world, they didn't get like more than like a couple hundred viewers maybe. And for StarCraft 2 when it was huge, if you just there was one guy, MC, who he would learn English, and part of the joke was, I mean, he was just a funny guy. He had a good personality, and he was one of the best. He would just like joke about, he spoke broken English, and he would interact with the chat, and he would just come up with these jokes like they were in half Korean, teaching the chat how to say things in Korean. It was perfect.
I
And
mean, that's good, yeah.
yeah, so he
That's what
got
people
big.
like.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You got to
What
be
have you been
super
up to?
good. Oh, what have I been up to?
Yeah.
Um, I've been making YouTube videos. You and me. Thank you, by the way, for joining me for one of the videos. After
Oh yeah, yeah.
Disloyal,
Of course.
I read a book and it was political, and I made a video about it because I had lots of thoughts. And other than that, just working at the job. I love working from home, and it gives me a lot more time to just like chill in my own house. I love it. I don't have to
believe
go
that.
in ever again.
Yeah.
And let's see, I've been like, I took out a couple library books. I've been reading those. I used to do like a lot of art, and I've just stopped doing that. Like just sketching, drawing, painting. I probably should do more of that, but I just haven't been like, I haven't felt it. I don't.
Yeah. I had a few weeks where I was doing a lot of pixel art.
Yeah.
Just because I only have my laptop on me, so I was like, well, this is something that I can do sort of mobily. And it's been a while because I've just been back being able to like stream and put up YouTube videos and stuff. I've just been working on that, and I just haven't been putting out my pixel art. It's very sad. How are people supposed to get their squares if I'm not here to provide? I don't know what to do.
What started you doing pixel art?
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
To be honest,
It's like, it's kind of indie
There's-
games. Like,
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things where like there's this program called Sprite, which is just like a really, I guess, very popular pixel art program that's used by a lot of like game developers, and I was able to pick it up on sale on the humble store. um and I just started doing just random pixel art stuff, 16 by 16 stuff, 32 by 32 stuff. There's some stuff, there's a few things that I'm pretty proud of as an amateur pixel artist. And it's been fun. It's interesting once you're in the position to make pixel art, you respect pixel art a lot more.
oh yeah.
Which, to be fair, I already respected pixel art, but there's people that they're like, these games, these look kind of dumb, these look kind of old, these look kind of simple, 8-bit, 16-bit. but it's pretty amazing. It turns out that making things really small is actually harder than making things really big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you have only like 16 squares to tell someone what something is, it's a lot harder than just giving them a giant, you know, 1980 by 1020 whatever the fuck.
There is a whole genre of just indie games that are 16-bit art with video game style, like old retro music, that
Yeah.
are just like they hit people with the nostalgia of like, this feels like
Mhm.
an 80s arcade game.
And a lot of the best ones trick people into thinking that that's what 8-bit and 16-bit used to look like,
Yeah.
when it's not. Like, you look at a game like Shovel Knight and you're like, well, Shovel Knight's pretty simple, and like it just looks so good, like the art's just so beautiful, and people would actually maybe confuse themselves into thinking that that's what things looked like on the Super Nintendo or on the NES, and it wasn't. Those were all really ugly. Super Nintendo not as much. Nintendo pretty ugly.
Yeah, I guess it's fun because people just, when it comes to indie games, they're super willing to suspend their disbelief. Like, they don't mind if something looks bad if it's artfully well done. And I don't mean
Yeah.
bad. I just mean like they don't care about nice graphics. They care about what, like, the thought that was put into it.
Right, right. I think I think we've talked about this before, but
That's all I talk
I'm a
about.
proponent that I'm way more of a fan of like an art style than like actual like graphical fidelity. Like, I would
Yeah.
rather have something that looks like a Breath of the Wild than something that looks like a Rainbow Six Siege or something. Not to say Rainbow Six Siege looks bad, but you have an appreciation for the style of a game, you know? Some
Yeah.
games have to look realistic, so that is their style, but
Have you ever played a game that just you almost feel like it has no love in it? Like
yes.
UFC
Yes.
4 or Madden or
Yes.
like indie games? Have you played them like that or?
Yeah, I don't like to disparage indie games very much, especially because, you know, there are games that we consider beloved, you know, that going back, you're like, they are pretty rough going back, you know, and seeing how the studios grow or how developers grow over time, it's still pretty good. You know, people have to start somewhere, like everything. You know, sometimes I look back at my old YouTube videos from when I was in high school and I just want to cry, and I think, you know, if only my parents had never met, maybe this world would be a better place. But, you know, we all have to start somewhere, and you get to a place where everything's okay, and it works out in the end. So
Oh
yeah,
man, I
there's some bad indie games,
there's
but they you know,
if I click on someone's channel and I see a
yeah,
video from 9 years ago, I don't have any judgment. It's like that person is totally
right.
different now.
No, that's fair. There's one of my favorite video game critics, I guess, is Joseph Anderson. I don't know if you've ever
I
watched or
was
listened to his stuff.
watching one of his videos very recently. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I love the stuff he does, and if you listen to videos of his from like 5 or 6 years ago, it is like the most amateur, like talking with the fucking the microphone. It's awful. It's awful. It's terrible. The content is good, but like the
The writing is
quality
good.
is
Yeah,
terrible. Right,
yeah.
right.
No, I love
But
those
yeah, but
YouTubers
it's just
that
a testament. Yeah.
they write stuff out. Like, it shows so much thought is put into it, even though the production is bad. One of my favorite guys is Noah Caldwell Gervais, and have you heard of him? Do you know him at all? Okay.
Nah.
He just does like travel logs. He bought a VW like van or whatever, and he just traveled across the country with his girlfriend playing video games, uploading them. Just bad quality, but he writes scripts for all his movies, and they're kind of critiques or things about his life, they're things about this, and he does it in the spirit of a traveler, and so like he puts his heart and soul into these
Right.
just crappily made videos from a technical standpoint that I don't mind at all. Nobody who watches it. He's got millions of views. It's cool. And like he's like, yeah, I'm trying to get this channel, trying to buy a new microphone. And it's like, dude, man, just keep the writing up. Like this is his book. This is his magazine. This is his
Yeah.
his articles.
Yeah, it's good.
I love that kind of stuff. And there's people that make those indie games that this is like their thing of art that they are putting their thing
Right.
into. And I know I'm reading too much into it. Some people are just fucking off. They're
No,
like,
no. I mean, well, right. Not every indie game has to be like someone's fucking Magnus Opus.
yeah, yeah, right, of course.
But there's you know, like not even some games that are really really good maybe don't have like the graphics to back them up necessarily. But I think for the most part, a lot of those games end up succeeding anyway, because for the most part, it feels like with games, like people are willing to put up with like worse graphics if the gameplay is like quality.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we talked about Slay the Spire months and months ago, and that's a game that I wouldn't say is ugly, but is not like, it does not excel in visuals.
Yeah.
But instead it uses what it has to make very clear, very poignant decisions for how every single thing articulates information to the player, and that's more important than if the game just looked nicer. And I think that's something that in gaming in general we're moving towards.
Yeah.
A lot of games that sort of take more stylized approach than hyper realistic approach,
Yeah.
like really value the way that character silhouettes look, or like simplicity in level design. Like I love when like shooters or like arena shooters have like really simple, clean, non-cluttered backgrounds, because it gives you so much more information about what's happening
Yeah.
than if everything, you know, like we've all played Fallout 3. It's a great game, but sometimes you walk into a house and you're like, what the fuck? Everything is brown and gray. I don't know what I can interact with.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Speaking of soulless games, Fallout 4 was like that for me. I enjoyed the experience, but I was like, this just doesn't have the same, like something about Fallout New Vegas had that writing style. Yeah. I just loved it.
I would agree with this.
I feel like people like wrote these characters and gave them like their dialogue, the way they really thought, how is this person going to talk to another person? And in Fallout 4, it was much more cookie cutter, felt corporate, felt, we got a big title, lots riding on this.
Right.
Give them
and
lots of missions.
Even though this is not the Fallout 4 episode, I will mention that one of the things, the biggest thing that I think takes a lot of the soul and the heart out of Fallout 4, really, like, it immediately for me, is that when you play Fallout 3, you play Fallout New Vegas, they're like traditional role-playing games in the sense that like the character is you get to choose how your character, the person you're playing, acts, what they say, who they interact with, how their morality system works, whatever. When you play Fallout 4, when there's dialogue, you're not in first person, you're in third person.
Yeah.
When you choose something to say, someone says it for you with their voice out loud, and they don't say the exact thing you picked. So you are not you anymore, you are playing a character.
Yep.
And I think that takes the immersion completely out of the game. Completely. Instantly. Yeah, it's rough. It's a rough one. Dude. Yeah, hopefully Microsoft will do better with the new Fallout game. Am I right? Big buyout.
They bought, what did they buy? They bought, was it Bethesda?
They bought the mother company of Bethesda, which I think is like ZeniMax or something like that. Some huge company that owns Bethesda, but now I think legally Microsoft owns the rights to Fallout and Elder Scrolls now.
Okay. Yeah.
Which this would be most important to games that are made by Bethesda Studios, because there are games that Bethesda publishes like Doom and Prey, which I don't think would. They're made by different development teams anyway, so I don't think that would be a huge deal. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting one. And because Microsoft had previously worked with Obsidian for the Outer Worlds, fuck, I always fuck it up. The Outer Worlds, a couple years ago, or like last year or whatever, that means that there is a realistic possibility that we can get a Fallout New Vegas 2. That can happen now.
That'd be dope.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the weird thing about sequels though, it's like I'm really hoping for like a Warcraft 4 or StarCraft 3, but Blizzard is different than the Blizzard of years ago, and the people who worked on Fallout New Vegas, like it's not gonna be the same team. Like, yeah, I mean, all you need is one good like game designer to come, or story designer or something.
People, well, not most of the people, but a lot of the people that worked on the Outer Worlds were people that were there from the original Fallout games and New Vegas. So I mean, it's a possibility.
Okay, was Outer Worlds good?
I heard that it was good.
It looks,
but boring. I don't know if it was actually good or if it's like Skyward Sword good, where everyone said it was good and then a year later they regretted saying that out loud. But I think it was actually good. Yeah. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
We're here to talk about. I know you were fishing earlier, and
I
missed it, dude. I was like, well, you were like, what have you been doing? I'm like, oh, this is a bunch of normal life stuff. Like, dude, I've been playing.
Well, no, I mean, catch up. It's been a while.
It has been a while
on a hiatus. Yeah,
a hiatus.
The studio tell us whether or not season 2 was greenlit, so we just had to wait
Yeah.
with all this content undone. We had to throw everything else out because
Yeah.
all our other episodes were recorded before all the other crazy world events of 2020. So we had to throw those out, get a new contract, got bought out by Microsoft.
I fired my agent, hired a new one.
Now we're back.
Yeah.
Season 2, stronger than ever.
Yeah.
What a return.
I've been playing Faster Than Light.
Yeah.
And that game, first of all, is hard as balls, dude. It is
Absolutely.
just like I can't beat it on easy. I can't even beat the boss. I was grinding.
Right.
I was keeping a log. I was keeping a notebook of all my runs, and I had like 30, 35 runs. Wait, maybe it doesn't sound a lot. I don't know, but for me that was a lot. It's like
It's a decent amount.
I was playing this game over and over and over again since you told me about it like 2 weeks ago, and it's fun, but I can't beat it on easy. Like,
yeah,
I can't even beat the final boss.
Very, very challenging game. And it came from a time when roguelikes were not just like they're hard. It was like roguelikes were like, you are going to be bent over. This is hard. We're talking like Spelunky, like Binding of Isaac times when it was like, don't actually expect to see the end of this game.
Have we talked about Binding of Isaac Afterbirth?
I don't know.
Because we should.
Might want to put a pin on that.
Yeah, we'll put a pin on it.
The new DLC comes out. The final DLC for Binding of Isaac, Repentance.
It's coming out. When is it?
Yeah. I don't know.
Like
I think it's like December or something.
Oh, cool.
Soon enough.
Because you got me on that game, and I played the shit out of that game.
It's a great game.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that too later. But
yeah.
But Faster Than Light, dude. It first of all reminded me of Oregon Trail, and I loved that about it because I played Oregon Trail growing up. Like we used to have this thing where it was like in middle school. I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade where it was like, did you have this thing where everyone said drop everything and read? It was like deer time.
No.
Drop everything and read. And it was like,
that sounds like a really aggressive reading campaign, to be honest.
No, it was
what if you were already reading?
No, it was.
Did you have to put your book down and grab a different book and reread that? Or?
It was a week-long thing in school where for this week at like 2 p.m. we would stop classes and drop everything and read for an hour. And for some reason, my teacher said, if you guys play on the computer and do Oregon Trail, that counts as reading. And we were all over that. We were like...
I mean, it's not like there's a lot of other gameplay on the Oregon Trail, to be honest.
We played Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 and Oregon Trail, and we had lots of fun. What is it about Oregon Trail that just captivated so many people? Like, it's such a simple game. It's
well, I mean, for when it came out, I think it's the fact that like computers were like space magic boxes.
But no, I mean, it wasn't
like I remember playing on Microsoft Paint for 4 hours.
I would go home and play Warcraft 3 for hours.
Yeah.
So Warcraft 3 was out. I would do, by the way, is free for alls and 4v4s. So that was complete nonsense, and malls with my friends. But which is kind of like the indie games. They're like the mods that brought in all these crazy games that we have now. So
I felt bad. I made a video talking about like when it's just like a bunch of stuff about indie gaming. And I was talking about like when indie gaming became popular, and I completely forgot. And I wrote down to talk about this, and I completely forgot to talk about Newgrounds.
Oh,
and I was really
Flash
upset.
games.
Yeah, because I was like, that really is like a big like boom for people making their own games, even if they were super simple.
Just something about
I get what you're saying.
Something about Call of Duty Zombies came from like a tower defense. Like you have a base, enemies are coming. They come in waves. You're not meant to beat the games. Just see how far you can go. And that tower defense, the balloons, and all that shit came from Newgrounds Flash games. So it's like, you know, these basic
and look,
concepts.
Now Blizzard is out here putting in their contracts that any mini games or any custom games you make in Warcraft belong to them.
Yes,
because they're still so salty about Dota.
Which causes all the modders to go, why would I spend hours of my time making a game if it could be requisitioned or whatever, like it's just taken by the company.
Right.
So you have
pretty interesting.
Yeah, mods are interesting. We should talk about that because those are kind of like an offshoot of indie games. Like we should talk about games that came from mods sometime. I have a history in doing that. So that's what I would play. So at the time, computers at school, of course, were always like way older than the stuff you had at home. So the only thing you could get loaded was Roller Coaster Tycoon and then Oregon Trail, and I guess it would just be like something about you could lose people, so you'd have a party and you'd go across. So you have an end goal, an end destination, and you'd have like a map. And I don't know if I'm remembering all these details correctly, but you'd have a map and just something about getting to the other side and taking your party, and each party, it was kind of like RPG, because I liked Final Fantasy X, I liked Final Fantasy 7 for a little bit. Those are games where you have a party and you're trying to get to somewhere and you're kind of training your people up, and if they die, you've got to now you got to solve that problem and give them a potion or whatever. And
Yeah, in a lot of ways, Oregon Trail was like a very primitive roguelike without the fun.
right,
Because you would play this game where the intention was not like to have this save file where you caught like Moltres and Articuno. It was just to like you just get to the end, and you usually would not get to the end, and
yeah.
you die, and you'd have to restart. And sometimes you'd get good stuff to happen, and usually you wouldn't. Most people just die of terrible bacterial disease. Um, but it was just that it was just interesting to just load a game and do a run and know that you're gonna die, and then just give up and then go
And then
home.
keep
And
doing
that
it.
was kind
Yeah,
of it. Yeah, you just do it again.
yeah. And they
Yeah.
had randomly generated seeds. So it's kind of like each new thing is an experience where I'm not
Right.
sure, it wasn't the same game every time. Like I remember playing Super Mario Bros. And it was kind of like every level was the same, and you could figure out. I'm watching these speedrunners
Yeah.
kill these games now, but like I would get to the point where I could beat the first 3 levels on World 1 just like with my eyes closed. Like, okay, just got to slog through this for 10 minutes before I get to the real stuff where I die every single time. But like, so Oregon Trail, something about the run you would have, it is like a roguelike, because the stuff you did early, if a member died or something, now it's hard to get to the end.
Right.
And
Right.
you could just restart, but
Permadeath mechanics.
yeah.
Permadeath per run. Yeah.
Yeah, and Faster Than Light is so interesting that the stuff you do now affects your run 3 or 4 sectors later. And I know this sounds so basic, but it's so cool to see that mechanic of like, do I sacrifice, do I hire new crew members on, or do I upgrade my ship so it can be better? And I don't know if you could upgrade your wagon, or I know you could buy supplies and stuff. So you would camp out at night, and at night you would have to make a decision. This reminds me of Darkest Dungeon.
Sure.
Are you going to feed these people, or are you going to, whatever? Mary has typhoid. Are you going to give her medication, and then the random instances where you come along something and the Indians attacked you, or I remember you would try to go over a river and you might have to sacrifice the wheels on your cart, or you could buy reinforced wheels, but it'll cost you money or food or something. And that's how you have to get through this obstacle. And so if you just fast forward that to 2012, when we have Faster Than Light, you're trying to get trying to get from sector to sector, collecting resources, upgrading your ship, and then you go into battles, and the battles they could be really easy or they could be super hard. And then with the first time that someone in FTL, like a computer, like invaded my base and started to like go around and kill my crew members, I was like, what is this? Now I have to micromanage my entire starship, and then I have to save my crew members. I have to get certain members to fight and then take them out of the fight. And I love that. You're microing while you're trying to attack the opponent. You have to choose where you're firing, and you got 2 things going on at the same time. I mean, presumably most people have played this game that are going to be listening to this,
Right.
or they go watch a stream or something. But man, I loved it. It caught my attention. I was like, this is a cool game. It's kind of hard to figure out at first. Like I couldn't figure out. There's a lot of subtle little things that I had to check the wiki for. Like, how do I fire, and does it matter where I fire on the opponent's ship? Well, as it turns out, it absolutely does. If you fire their guns, then they stop shooting
Right.
you.
Their guns might not work, or if you fire their oxygen supply, then they have to focus on getting it back online, or else they suffocate to death. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
it's really
that
interesting.
interaction, because I felt like
Yeah.
I was making decisions that I should have made this run better or differently. Like, it's on me. And
Right. The thing that makes FTL interesting is that at the time that it came out, I think it was 2012. There were roguelikes starting to hit the market like commercially, like pretty successfully, like Spelunky and we talked about Binding of Isaac and stuff like that. But a lot of those games were primarily action games, like any kind of action-oriented game, where they were like a twin-stick shooter or a platformer or something like that. So in comes FTL, that is procedurally generated, kind of. I mean, to be honest, I was laughing a little bit, but you're not wrong at all. It is a lot like the Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
It's a hyper punishing, very very difficult permadeath situation, run after run after run after run. But the moment to moment gameplay isn't action. It's strategy. It's
Yeah.
all turn based stuff. It's thinking about how your ship is working, how the opponent's ship is working. Maybe you have a room that's on fire. Maybe you close the door and you cut oxygen supply from that room to like snuff the fire out. Maybe you fire on the enemy's shields and then you fire on some other their oxygen room or light that thing on fire. Now they have to focus on two different parts of their ship. There's a lot that goes into like what you're doing past like what's my damage number.
Yeah. There's
what's
a lot
my
to
defense
track.
number. Yeah, and you can even drain from your own shields, the battery system draining from certain aspects of your ship to power up different parts of your ship.
Yeah.
Maybe you're like, my guns don't actually matter as much right now. I need to focus on other things.
So
And one of the things that you go.
It was cool is that you have the choice in every fight. You could escape or you can fight and destroy them. And at first I thought, I always have to destroy. And then I realized, wait, it's actually tactical if I just forget that and go back and repair my ships and repair my accelerator or whatever it is, and then pilot and then fix that room and get out of here. And that's actually more strategic because I save more resources because you don't have to win every battle. That right there is a decision point. Are we fighting and getting the resources, or are we getting out? And I loved it.
And in a lot of games like that, usually there's the possibility that like you'll have something very very powerful at some point, or very like game breaking. Again, like anything like Isaac, where you're like, I just picked up an item that can carry me through the whole game, or any kind of numerous things like that. We talk about Slay the Spire. Maybe you just get the best 5 cards possible at the very start of your run, and you're like, this is a clean sweep to the rest of the rest of the floor. The people that made FTL, which they don't have a huge catalog of games.
They have 2, right?
Subset Games has made FTL and Into the Breach. And Into the Breach is like legitimately one of my favorite indie games I have ever played. It is so good. And I used to think this is true of FTL. I mean, I still really love FTL from when I played it. But like, I'm like, man, move over FTL. We got a new big kid in town, and it's Into the Breach. And one of the things that I really love of the way that they design their like tactics or strategy games is that there is no moment where you feel super comfortable about the decision you're making.
Yep.
In a lot of games, you're like, easy best upgrade, easy make this choice. But you're
good
always,
or evil.
They will never give you the ability to upgrade everything.
Yeah.
To max out all your stuff, to get everything you want. So you're talking about like FTL, like you can get materials to upgrade your ship or to buy stuff, but you will never have so much stuff that you're like, we are free to go forever.
Yeah, choose the weapon with higher damage or whatever. Like,
right. Like they choke you on every decision you can make, and it feels like you're constantly barely making upgrades, but it's intentional. Like part of the way their games are designed are to make you progress forward with small upgrades, moment to moment to moment, but they offer you so many things and you have so many choices to make that you feel like you're like, oh my god, I will never be able to do all the shit that they're telling me. I can never afford everything that they're giving me. But that feeling of like insecurity and knowing that you're leaving stuff on the table is kind of the whole point. It kind of adds to the stress of the situation.
Absolutely. It's oddly really difficult to make a really enjoyable but difficult player versus environment game, like player versus computer.
Right.
Because computers act predictably. So even in this game, the AI acts somewhat predictably, but so they make it hard that the choices you make may not be right, and you're going to have a random encounter. So what the choices you made might not be good if you go into like if you're sacrificing hull damage and you're like, I'm just going to let my hull get really low, I'm going to upgrade my weapons, and I'm going to hire new crew members so I can repair the ship and hopefully I don't explode. Well, if you go into an asteroid field and it keeps hitting your ship, runs over. So maybe you should have, But then if you balance and everything and become a generalist, you're not going to be good against, uh, all the things the game could throw at you. And
Right, right,
yeah,
right. Most people will not be in a situation where they can outskill their way out of the bad
yeah,
things that'll happen in FTL. And I think that's kind of what I was talking about like making stress part of your like fundamental game design means that you cannot let players escape the feeling of tension by just being better than the game. So like if a game is really difficult because like bosses are hard and they have really crazy patterns, like you could presumably get so good that you don't get hit, and with enough time and enough damage, like you can beat the boss. But by like just flat out preventing things like that from happening because of the situations that you find yourself in, the different encounters, and what kind of resources they offer you, you force players to be in that critical situation where they can't say, dude, fuck it, we're good, we'll just blow them up easy, move on to the next one.
yeah,
It's always a thing of like, I'm low on my shields, I'm low on my hull damage, I need to get more scrap to upgrade stuff, I need a better weapon. And you're always looking for just like that that small escape from the situation you're in, which is like the micro level of like the macro level being on the map and literally running away from the giant armada
yeah.
fleet that's chasing you.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
That's
they never let you feel comfortable in that game.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're on your toes. You're being chased by a big fleet, and so I actually thought I should just skip and get to each sector as soon as possible, and I kept losing all these runs in like sector 2, sector 3. I was like,
Right.
this is not a good strategy because there's 8 sectors till I get to the end boss. So I'm doing something horribly, horribly wrong. What am I doing? And I'm spending everything efficiently. I'm getting good fights, and then just something happens. Well, it turns out, and I did look up tips and guides because like if I can't beat a game on easy, like I try not to look up cheats or guides. I want to figure it out. I can't figure this game out. So I look up tips.
It's a hard game.
Even with the tips, I realized that, oh, this is still nothing beats experience because I don't even know what to look up in the wiki. I could figure out how the game works, and it answered some questions that the tutorial couldn't. But it comes down to that gut feeling, that feel, that experience to get through the run. You have to figure out what the game's trying to do. So I actually, one of the tips was hang out in the first sector and get as many points as possible, and you win fights, find loot, salvage materials, and build up your ship before you go to the next sector. But like you said, you have that sense of like you're limited on the amount of warps that you can do, how many jumps. So if you run out of jumps, you just drift aimlessly, and the fleet can come and catch up to you, or you could get picked up by some bandit, some pirate, and like it's kind of cool to be I'm just adrift in space. I don't have any warp drives or anything like
Right.
and or if you run out of missiles, like now you can't shoot your secondary weapon, or it's like that's a huge amount of damage I'm missing. Or what if I don't have enough things to charge up so I can move on to the next sector? So it actually I got much farther in my runs when I started. It's almost like farming in a RPG or something. Like fight the monsters around, gain experience, but it's what I love. It's not experience, it's loot that you choose what you want to upgrade, and you're reading the run. I mean, you can kind of read ahead and go, what do I need? What do I need to I'm skipping on this, or I just so happen to get like 3 crew members in sector 1. So when you jump from 3 crew members up to 6, that's huge. That changes my playstyle. Right. And so that I didn't choose that. It just was luck. So now I know like I can afford to go in other areas because I have lots of people repairing my stuff within my own ship. So I like maxed out on weapons or something. I don't remember exactly what I did for that run, but
historically with games, I know I just keep comparing it to other roguelikes, but it just kind of fits.
Yeah.
Historically with games like that, runs will tend to end in failure when people find the exit to a floor and leave. Like, knowing how to maximize your time to get as much money or as many resources or as many upgrades is important. This is a big thing. We're talking about the Binding of Isaac. Same thing. You know, a lot of people, they're going through the maze, they get to the boss, they beat the boss, and they yeet. And then they don't pick up other items that they could have gotten, or other spirit hearts, or other.
And it's going to get harder.
A tarot card, and it just gets harder and harder and harder. And so, especially early on, like part of, the learning over time of how the game works is knowing the risk reward situations, being like, when is it intelligent to put myself in a bad situation for a potential gain, and when is it like literally going to throw my runaway. And if you know it won't throw your runaway, usually you're better off just, you know, taking a bad situation early, because you need, if you don't do that, you're just going to be completely underpowered by the time you get to the end.
It
And
felt,
faster than light's the same way. Yeah.
It felt really good when I got to the point where I was experienced enough to know, should I go to the next sector, or should I go to this, should I try to go bounce, store, buy a bunch of stuff, bounce back, and then go out the sector. And I did that, and I knew I had hull damage or whatever. I knew I just had very few warps left, but I planned it sort of strategically where I pick up just enough right before I get to the store. Like I picked up scrap from, you know, like I was gambling a little bit. Like I didn't know it was going to be ahead, but I knew I could, if I just picked up another 15 scrap, then I could buy that, which would get me over the hump. I had, you know, 54 scrap, and if I had 55, I could buy the next part, the next drone, which would make the next run better. I'm going to go for it. Roll the dice. Let's do this thing. Rewarded. Yeah. It was pretty close. Got out of the sector, and then I was set up better for the next run.
We talked about this exact same thing too on that Slay the Spire episode, because we were talking about how you can go through a floor and skip all the elites, but you're not going to get the money, and you're not going to have the artifacts, and you're not going to have the rare cards that you need for future runs. And knowing it's interesting because the game can't really force you into doing it, because part of it is giving the player choice. But once you become knowledgeable enough in a game like this to know when to put yourselves in those situations and how to get that benefit, you feel the reward for becoming better at the game. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And a lot of that doesn't come from like direct hard upgrades of like, oh, you're better at the game because you have more damage. It comes from you're better at the game because you learn the game more, which again, it's something that we talked about with the Slay the Spire episode. It is definitely a fundamental of these like hyper difficult, you know, permadeath procedurally generated type games where it's like you need to make the game in a way that players learn how to get better. Yeah. Admittedly, FTL is so difficult that a lot of people might actually be completely walled by it. You know, not gonna lie, it becomes very, very hard. I think Into the Breach, you know, if FTL is a quarter pounder, Into the Breach is a quarter pounder with cheese.
Okay.
You're like, you fucking madmen. You figured out how to make it better. Max sauce you absolute lunatics
to my quarter pounders.
Yeah. And then I dip my fries in barbecue sauce. Tell them Cactus Jack sent you, you know? But yeah.
What?
It's the Travis Scott meal. Are you not? You're not a professional memer?
No. I think I'm a little bit above the Travis Scott. Although I did watch him live when he went on Fortnite.
You watched Travis Scott live and you didn't buy a $6 McDonald's collaboration where you could get a quarter pounder with bacon and lettuce, fries with a barbecue sauce to dip in, and a medium Sprite. You call yourself a Travis Scott fan.
I think I said the opposite.
$6 on the McDonald's app.
He's a singer, right?
I don't know who he is.
I don't know what he does. All these people, all they do is Instagram anyway. That's all they like.
If you ask me, what do you know about Travis Scott? I'd tell you that he dips his fries in barbecue sauce. That's all I have. That's literally all I have. I don't know if he's a singer or an athlete or what. I don't know what he does.
Dude, I was playing Death Stranding, and I do this weird side mission where I gotta deliver stuff to a cosplayer. I gotta deliver a sewing kit to a cosplayer. That cosplayer takes off his panda mask. It's Conan O'Brien.
And Conan O'Brien's in that game.
Conan O'Brien. I looked at this up in a YouTube video later. Yeah. For his show, he went over to Japan and went to the studio and met up with Hideo Kojima. And Hideo is apparently a big fan. I was like, "Do you want to be in my video game?" He's like, "Sure." And they spent a day filming, you know, doing how they do with the face stuff. And now he's in a video game. And I was like,
"Yeah,
that's dope." These celebrities like could get in their own game. I just think that's so. I think it's Travis Scott.
Kojima is an absolute madman.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're just saying that you want Travis Scott DLC for Death Stranding or what you want.
That's what I was going with that. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad we closed the loop on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a thought, like, could AAA do roguelike? How come this is such an indie game phenomenon?
Why
are indie games so much better design, like in terms of game
Well, I
design.
don't know if that's true. I don't know
Well,
if they're
they
better
they are.
design.
Look, the experience I got from FTL and Celeste and Slay the Spire and a couple Binding of Isaac Afterbirth or Rebirth or whatever. Like, man, you can't like. I was so into it. It was like when I first discovered like StarCraft 2. I was like, this game is so deep. Like, you can do so many different strategies, and the other players can do their own, and you have to read it. Like, but then when you play these AAA games, it's like you just shoot or you complete objectives or like
I mean,
Dragon Age
look,
Origins
I'm not
doing
here to drag.
objectives.
I'm not here to drag down AAA games. I'm a big stand for some AAA games for sure. They bring something different to the table for sure. I think part of the thing that makes roguelikes really interesting, and it's something that I'll be talking about in a YouTube video that I'm gonna upload in the future. Get that little self plug in.
Are you advertising the podcast, dude?
Like right now,
Yeah, you
or in
shameless
general?
plugging.
Yes, I'm plugging our podcast in the podcast. Um, absolutely shameless. One of the things that I think is interesting about like how roguelikes are designed is that you can work with a lot of smaller pieces to that sort of add up to more than like the sum of their parts, right? Like you can have levels and bosses and items and synergies that on the whole probably would not validate like a $60 AAA release, but you can make like really expansive like games that people will play far longer than Metal Gear Solid 5 or God of War or whatever. I have games, AAA games, where I put 60, 70 hours in. Seems like a lot. And then games like Binding of Isaac, I've put 400 hours in.
Yeah.
Literally within the past week and a half or something, I've put like 35 hours into Hades,
Yeah.
which has just been an absolute fucking like insane time. I love that game. And these are things that I think it really speaks to like more of a studio that doesn't have as huge of a budget or doesn't have as much time to design a game. They can focus on like a couple fundamental parts and then sort of let like emergent gameplay create sort of an exponential growth of possibility within their game that just making a game that's like completely linear or linearly designed sort of wouldn't do. I don't know if I'm even making sense right now.
It makes sense.
You make levels, you make bosses, you make items, you make synergies, you make spells, you make all these things that on the whole are not like crazy complicated. And then when you release them into being like all the different combinations and situations they can run into, turn it from being a very small game into potentially a very large, very, very huge possibility for what run to run can look like. That kind of thing lends itself to like smaller teams better than if you're like a big team and you're like, we can make a big narrative where you follow through a story, follow through the cutscenes, stuff like that.
I guess my thing is like with AAA games, it's like if your objective is to take like an escort mission. You know how many games now in 2020 are coming out with AAA titles that have beautiful graphics, really cool like mechanics, like one or two like you could go back in time or something like that, and yet they still have the escort mission. And I'm just thinking like, is this good design? Or are we just getting fed back what we're familiar with? And maybe
Right.
that's kind of the answer is indie games could take radical risks, and with a AAA title you can't take. Like if it's like doing a Marvel movie versus doing an independent film. You could see some crazy shit on independent films.
Yeah, I mean I get your point to a certain extent. I guess like for me, I think
Do I have a point? I'm not even sure I had a point.
I don't know. I think like I can agree with some of it, but for me, I think it's case dependent. Earlier we were talking about have I played bad indie games? I've played bad indie games. Not every indie game is like this game was born through the story of my tragic life where my mother and my father both exploded in Vietnam, and then I was mailed their eyeballs, and then later I was drafted into the war myself, and then I had to use their eyeballs and I got the Sharingan. Not every game has to be like, some people just make Snake. Like I have been sent review copies for people or from people where they're like, would you like to play my game? It's Snake. but it's not a snake.
I
It's a train.
I listened to a game dev commentary of this guy who just is like, I just made Bejeweled in 7 different things. He had a Christmas version, Easter
Yeah.
Bunny. He just
There's a lot of that. Like, not every game is like this, the tortured soul of an artist has gone into making
that's the only thing me and you like though.
brick break, like it doesn't always happen. And in the same way, I think that's true for AAA games. Like, I legitimately think God of War 4 is a masterpiece. Like, non-ironically, I think God
You
of War
mean
4 is a masterpiece.
the one that the one that just came out with the sun?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's on my list to play.
Yeah, I legitimately think that game is a masterpiece, but I think it just depends on what the people are doing when they're making the fucking game. That's
Sure.
all that matters. You're talking about escort missions. Like, there can be good escort missions, right? Like, I think the best
course, yeah.
example I can think of, and this is going to be like, this is really obtuse, but I'm going to say it anyway because fuck it, whatever. Like, I'm a big fan of Watchmen, right?
Yeah.
I really, really love the Watchmen graphic novel.
Yeah, me too.
And when I watch the Watchmen movie by Zack Snyder, I feel like it is a husk, a soulless, lifeless imitation, the reanimated corpse of fucking Alan Moore's dream brought to life, and then just completely perversed and potentially sodomized to put on the screen to try to sell to people as a previous masterpiece that is now a steaming pile of fucking donkey dick. It is awful. I don't like it. I don't know if you've caught on. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I think part of the thing that is frustrating is that the Watchmen movie visually is almost identical scene to scene, panel to panel, but it doesn't have the soul. They don't know what makes the things matter, so they can't actually put that on the screen.
Dude, I read the
Same
Watchmen book and then I watched that trailer. Holy shit. I thought first of all, I still think it's the best trailer in my opinion or whatever. Like it's the best trailer of all time. And then you go see the movie, you're like, oh no.
Yeah,
oh,
it's pretty
no.
rough. It's pretty rough. And for the thing for like the escort mission, it's like you might think we're making a game and games have escort mission, put the escort mission in. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But if you know why an escort mission is useful, same thing we're talking about FTL designing stress into a game, like things like that are important. If you make the game to make players feel a certain way and you can accomplish that, make them feel stressed out, make them feel over burdened by having to do a ton of stuff, but actually like design it to work correctly, I think that's okay. I don't think there's a problem with it. And I think that's where a lot of the problem lies, is being like, well, we're making a big game, so put the big game stuff in the game. And
they're
it's
making
like,
pop
if you don't
songs,
have a
dude.
vision for what you want to make, then it's not going to feel useful. It's not going to feel like anything.
It's pop songs on the radio. It's like, you like this beat. You never heard this song? Yeah, you kind of know, like you maybe haven't played a game. You're picking up a controller and you're okay. Do this, shoot. All right, hit him in the head. Do the mechanic. Like I know what's going on.
I mean, even now, like at this point, Call of Duty is kind of a meme that everyone's like, they make them every year. They're only literally one step removed from just being Madden at this point, where they're just re-release the roster from the last one, whatever. No one gives a shit about like anything that goes on in the Call of Duty world.
And they're so damn big.
Yeah, some people do, but whatever.
Holy shit.
Well, I mean, yeah, they
do everything wrong.
That's a whole other story. But like there was a point in time when we were playing like Call of Duty 4 or Modern Warfare 2 where like people actually thought those game stories were like really good.
I love Modern Warfare 2.
We've lost some of that. Like the No Russians mission, for as much controversy as it's created, like it's we think of Call of Duty as like the shooty man game where you are man and you shoot. But like No Russians is a mission that like legitimately has so much going on as far as like the way that it's trying to convey emotions to the player, force them to do something they don't want to do, and be like firsthand responsible for like a really pretty fucked up moral situation that is going on in the story.
Yeah.
That takes a lot to decide that's going to go in the game. Now, if you're like a fucking dum-dum and you're like, this is my shooty game, so you run through the fucking No Russians mission and on your way you like knife a couple people while you're there, then maybe it's on deaf ears, But yeah, like, I don't know. My point is, I don't have beef with AAA games. Sorry, I had to cough a little bit.
I don't have beef either.
I just think it depends on what the game's, what game
I get
it
upset.
is
I just get upset because I'm like, look at these people over here with $20,000 and 3 dudes in a basement who made this in 18 months. Look how good this is. And then look at your millions of dollars, people in suits, meeting, advertising, hiring, like just hiring insane people, paying them millions of dollars to put out a product that I pick up, and in 10 hours in, I'm like, I get this game. It was sort of fun. You know, almost all games are fun for the first, hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And then there's just always a point where it's like, okay, I get it. Like Dragon Age Inquisition was like that for me, where I was like, this is an MMO. Okay. Like people like that, but what are we doing here? But then these other games that have no business making me so into it, they get me into it. It's like Nicolas Cage on movies. Like I just am drawn
with stuff like that. like I can't help but wonder, and this is not something that has an answer, so it doesn't matter if I wonder it or not.
Yeah.
But I can't help but wonder, like, let's say the studio behind Celeste had $5 million behind their game instead of what they had. Would we get a game better than Celeste?
No.
Or would we get just
you get a worse game?
Potentially.
I mean,
like is that restriction, like, kind of, wow, look at us, my God, we've ascended.
No, it's time and place.
Same way we talked about pixel art. It's less pixels forces you to try harder.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same thing. You have less money, you have less resources. You need to make the thing that you want to make perfectly. You don't have time for other bullshit. You have to make the exact product you want to make, how you can make it, how you can afford to put it out. Do you water it down? Do you make it worse? Do you overstay its welcome if you start pumping way more? Not to say that it's like, hey, indie game companies, stop asking for money, put out your fucking starving artist product. I'm not saying that. But, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, even if all of our favorite indie games were funded by like these giant companies, picked up by Microsoft, picked up by Sony, I think we would still have indie games being made by single people that were like, why can't these games be as good as these people?
I'm thinking that if you just have a person with a vision like Hideo Kojima, all his games, they've got a feel. A lot of people don't like his games. I was telling my brother, he's 18. I told him about like what Death Stranding is like because he never played it. He's like, that doesn't sound like a fun game. I'm like, you're 18. You wouldn't think it's a fun game. Like, in my mind, he's just a kid. Like, he loves video games. He plays all the time. He plays all sorts of things. He likes Spider-Man. He likes like League of Legends, Fortnite, all these games. Like, why would you play a game where you're just delivering something and being a courier and like the mechanics are trying to hold like stuff on your back? And why would you watch a game that's like meant to be like a movie that tells a story, where literally like the reason I play through the boring parts of this is so I can get to the story mode, because I'm just excited to see where this is going. And I read through all the what is it, the lore books or whatever, and you pick up something. Yeah. Like, because I'm into it. Because I like Hideo Kojima because he has found a way to make so many games with his vision. It will be this way. We're going to take this crazy, like all these things that I like. He likes mecha, like Japanese mech. Like, so he has that in the Metal Gear Solid games. Like, he's putting his artistic style and like how people should talk. Like, the dialogue with it. He's directing like a movie. He's got a style, a way he wants to do this. With these indie games, they have such small groups of people. The guy who made Celeste wrote that out, and it's time and place of being in the mind state that they just want to make this game that tells their story, and they hired on a pixel artist, and they probably had more meetings one-on-one like you and me are doing now, like good talking with interaction, and like real things are going on. We're talking right now at 11 p.m. at night. Like, this is different stuff happens than when you're sitting in a corporate executive and you have 10 members on the team on the sound design, and you guys are trading emails back and forth, and it has to be this, and the consumers like that. You just lose so much of that soul, so much of the human element in that you put into the game, the hard work, the part of yourself that you have to put into the game to make it like a successful thing. And I'm not talking about just story. I'm talking about how do we make, like, me sitting down making FTL, how do I make the end consumer feel stressed out or feel like what's the next hurdle that they have to overcome? They're thinking about that experience, and they made such a good game about that. And they didn't have outside bullshit influence of like you gotta get a hot female lead character so we could put her on advertiser, like, or whatever. I mean, you know how they do these things. Like they weren't constrained, so you don't have all these people talking in your ear. You have your vision and your end consumer and a close enough team that you can get this thing going. All these elements make for just amazing games that will stick out in my mind and your mind, and probably most people listening that like indie games, as the reason they like them more than these escort missions from AAA games, unless they're cool escort, like they flip the thing on its head. I don't know if that's a good explanation, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Did we do it? Did we cover all of FTL? Do you have anything else to?
Did we do it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Add or?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of it.
I got all my thoughts.
FTL in its infinite simplicity, or in its infinite complexity, FTL is also pretty simple. That's what I meant to say.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying by that. There's so many
The
ways
game
you could go
feels
about
like
it.
so much can happen, but it's actually pretty simple at the end.
Get over there.
You have your get over there, get your encounters, upgrade your stuff,
Fight some people.
But it's the way everything folds, sort of emerges from those basic elements that make the game fascinating. And again, for the time that it came out in, being like this sort of visual, not really visual novel, but like a almost choose your own adventure, almost text-based adventure game where these random encounters would happen where, this run I like encountered this fleet and all these random different things can happen. FTL not only constraints your ability to make decisions for the things they give you, but also keeps a lot of things out of your control. And that just leads to a game that feels infinitely replayable. You want to play again and again and again because you never know what your next run is going to look like. Like I said, my little self plug earlier, but I think there is a lot of a lot to think about in terms of like, how do you make a game genuinely interesting over and over and over, and what things do you have to do to make things fresh but not overload people, to not literally stress people out to the point where they can't play. Again, I think if there is any criticism for FTL,
it's too hard.
I'm quite happy that FTL did as well as it did when it came out. It got tons of praise and tons of accolades, but it is very, very difficult. Like more so than a lot of games of its similar type, of its permadeath type. FTL is one of those games that like legitimately most people probably will not see to the end. I think I only beat the game like a couple times in like all the time that
you're like a real video gamer. I mean, you're a big time professional Twitch streamer.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I finish all the games I play. But that's why like I really think they took a lot of those elements, and when they started or when they came out with Into the Breach, like all of the really, really smart, really clever designs from FTL came into the Breach and made something that feels like literally like a masterpiece work. Like they took something that was already really beloved by a lot of people and really upheld to be really, really, really good, and they took that and they were like, we're going to refine the fuck out of this thing and make something that admittedly Into the Breach is almost completely different. I mean, it is a roguelike, there is permadeath, but it's like a top-down tactics game, a la like a Final Fantasy tactics type thing.
Dope. I want to play it.
Yeah, it is so fucking good. And maybe I'm hyping it up too much because I like it too much, but I know Into the Breach, it has a pretty good reputation.
Dude, don't you just get excited when like a studio comes out with a killer awesome first game and then their second game is even better? Like, doesn't that make you just excited? You're like, what are they gonna do? Like third game, fourth game, and then the updates, because it's easier than ever just to like patch your game up. Like Factorio released like this year, right? Like this calendar year, and it's been out for 2-3 years, and they are adding stuff to that game that I'm like, man, this looks way different. They're just adding more stuff. It's just awesome.
I mean, I was talking about how I'm playing Hades right now on stream.
Yeah.
Off stream.
Who made Hades? Like what were they known for?
Super Giant Games, which was known for Bastion first.
Right.
Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, which is a game that I hope to play on stream at some point soon, and now Hades. And you can feel like it is like Tim Burton.
They're leveling up.
You know what? But I mean, like you see those 4 games, and you're like, I know these all come from the same people.
Yeah,
because they have that same feel, they have the same style, they have a lot of the same like artistic qualities, a lot of the same atmosphere. But they each one of them gets better and better and better. And Bastion started as like a big game that people really appreciated.
I like Bastion. Yeah, I beat it.
Xbox Live arcade days when like indies were first hitting like Xbox Live and people could actually download them onto their console. It was like a big deal back then. And they have just made banger after banger. And you know, I don't want to talk about it right now because we would go on forever. But legitimately, for me, in my present state, I said this in my last stream where I played Hades. I think that Hades is, even though it might not be my favorite, I think Hades is the best roguelike I've ever played.
Wow.
I think it's legitimately
big praise.
Yeah, it's very good. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into that. You know, there's different kinds of games. There's platformers. There's action games. There's
maybe I should play it and then we could talk about it next episode. You want to go more into depth?
I don't want to just hype up every single game I talk about and then you play it and you're like, I don't know, dude, the game's kind of shit. I give
you my regular thoughts usually mostly. I'll tell you if I don't like something.
Yeah. But yeah, I have been loving it from the art style to the moment to moment gameplay, which is just so unbelievably smooth.
Each run's different.
Each run is different. The story, this is the rest of what I'm gonna say. I don't want to. This isn't the Hades podcast, okay?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think is really interesting is that the death in Hades is canonical because you're like this. You're the son of Hades. So you're the son of Hades, and it's like a Grecian sort of thing. So there's like the Olympian gods and all that stuff. And you're trying to break out of like the underworld. And every time you die, because you're immortal and you're a god, you're just sent back to the entrance of Hades. So every character knows you're trying to escape. They comment on how you die. They comment on how you're dying over and over and over
that's
again.
cool. Yeah.
And when you're trying to break out, the Olympian gods are like helping you leave Hades, which is why they're giving you all these benefits. They're like, yeah, come hang out with us in Olympus. And then when you die, they're like, oh, well, fuck, you died, so you lost all of our bonuses. So we have to help you get back up here again. So the run to run is canonical in the game. They know you're dying. They know you're dying over and over and over. And the story moves with every subsequent run. So like the more that you do in your runs, it pushes the story forward and keeps the runs canonical, which is just super interesting compared to a lot of games that are like just start run, you do the run, you die, and then it's like start run again, which it is what you're doing, but the game recognizes your constant pushing over and over and over and how hard it is as like something that they can reflect on and talk about and the characters know
stuff
about.
Is updating. Like people know like these devs know that you're going to be playing this game a lot, so let's just throw that in the feature. It's almost like the design is like, we know the consumer is updating with the times. Yeah. That's what new features are best at.
It feels like they thought of the mechanic and then they built the theme around it to have it make sense.
You know what this reminds me of?
Hades is the first roguelike that they've made too. So
you know what I loved when they did with Marvel, the new Spider-Man, Homecoming? They skipped the story at the beginning of how he got bit and became Peter Parker. They was like, yeah, you know all this. Like, when I was in the theaters and I saw that, I was like, yes, this is the perfect way. Because I've been, there's been the general consensus is that there's been Spider-Man overload. This is the 3rd reboot of Spider-Man in my life and since 2000. So skip that shit. Let's get to the different story. And I just fell in love with the character. They didn't spend the movie on the stuff I didn't care about. They spent the movie on like the real, like getting to know Peter Parker. And like this game knows that you're, you're gonna die a lot, and let's play with that a little bit. Let's give people the recognition.
And it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like there's a narrator, and like the character talks to the narrator. Sometimes it's not like super obnoxious. All the characters have like really, really, really nice writing, which is not crazy at all for Supergiant, because their writing is just on another level. Everything's voice acted. The voice acting is all great. The art is great. The music is amazing. It is superb. It's 5
I remember
stars
everything
all around.
about that with Bastion too. You haven't told me, like, I don't know much about Hades, but that sounds like the same.
That everything everyone said about Bastion when it came out, like The game is super responsive, feels great to play, looks amazing, music's great,
Good
voice
narration.
acting is great,
Yeah.
narration is like on point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You excited for a live action Spider-Verse movie? Might happen.
Uh, yeah, that'd
We
be
got
cool.
Michael Keaton's gonna be in the Morbius movie with Jared Leto.
What's Morbius?
Probably gonna put Morbius as the vampire from Spider-Man.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Right.
Michael Keaton's in there. He's gonna play the Vulture
Oh, that's
from
cool.
Homecoming. But Morbius was owned by Sony, so now you got that crossover again. And you hear Jamie Foxx is gonna come back to play Electro in the next Spider-Man in the MCU.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, confirmed. He's probably not the same Electro since he fucking exploded.
Dude,
in
I thought
Amazing
Jamie
Spider-Man
Foxx
2,
was filming a Mike Tyson documentary, like a biopic.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably finished that.
He's just this jacked ass Mike
I don't
Tyson.
know.
He's still got the lisp.
I mean, listen, I don't know what to tell you. You got plenty of room to reinvent Electro compared to Amazing Spider-Man 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think I saw that. But anyway,
Any finishing thoughts you want to
Dude,
anything you want to say about FTL?
I just want to thank you, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of like viewers too. I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to just talk about indie games, just stuff that is your channel that I'm so thankful that you're able to let me in and kind of like give me these recommendations. I go play these games, we talk about them. I'm able to connect all these other different thoughts into what I thought about the game. So, I mean, it's just awesome. I enjoy doing these with you. I hope that we can keep on doing these. And I think just the value that we're giving to people who are hanging out with us right now, listening, like you could try out these games, or you can, something that we've said about any of these games we've talked about tonight, you have connected with some piece of that. You go, oh yeah, that's why I liked about it. Or any of the other episodes we've done, like Celeste, like I really did like the writing. And what's what we're trying to do with this show is give the viewers our opinions of what we like about it, but we're just trying to get you to see all these other things that maybe you could like it. And I think I speak for both of us that we'd love interaction. If people want to comment down below, dude, me and Steven will definitely talk back with you. We'd love to have if you want to be like a guest on the show and like talk about your favorite game and like, or just one little point about an indie game that we've already mentioned, that'd be cool too. Anything to interact with people that have been sticking with us for an hour and 6 minutes into this, video or whatever.
Yeah.
We're so small right now that this is the time to interact with us, build a community, and like get people around. Because I think what we're doing with this show is unique. I mean, it's two dudes talking about indie games that are 8 years old. Like that's pretty niche, but
it's pretty niche.
But it also opens up to so much because people, it's like nostalgia. People get it about old games that they get to relive and revisit. And we're keeping things alive. Like I mean, not that you need to do this, but that you are keeping like the indie gaming scene alive by just adding content to it. You're live streaming, you're a variety streamer, you're bringing in new games that people haven't heard of that just dropped, like indie games. You're playing older ones. People enjoy it, people like it. It's just what we both like to do. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I'd agree with all that.
Good.
Yo, shout out your channel. People you're about.
I just tried this out, right? If you type in Michael Kuhlman and go to videos, I should pop up. And if below in the description,
good shout out.
Below in the description, if you just go to my channel, either you're watching it from my channel or you're watching it from Steven's, in which case you should never watch a video from Steven ever, StefenGalaxy ever again. You should only spend all your waking hours going to my content. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously not. Don't do that.
Accurate. All accurate things.
Yeah. So that's my channel. What about yours? If you want to, yeah.
What about mine? Which one?
People like this is going to be on my channel. What if viewers want to? They can click your channel shit on below.
They can click my shit.
Yeah.
YouTube.com/StefenGalaxy.
I recommend people watch you live stream. Like just interact with that.
You know what? I also recommend that. Yeah. At twitch.tv/StefenGalaxy2. We play a bunch of indie games. Same kind of thing goes up on my YouTube. Indie game content, indie game reviews, Twitch VODs, all sorts of stuff. Hopefully I should be flooding my YouTube channel with more and more and more crazy indie game content, which is always good. And in the description, at least on my channel, I could put it on your channel as well or whatever. I have a Discord where we talk about indie games pretty frequently too. So if that's something you're interested in,
Yeah.
consider hitting that Discord invite,
Yeah.
and it'll say you joined, and then I'll send memes at you,
All right.
not to you.
That
at
sounds yeah, at you.
Yeah.
That sounds great, dude.
Yeah, man.
That's good. Building up that community. We're so small. Like, I hope people find this when you're huge and you have tens of thousands of views on your YouTube videos, and they go back years ago in 2020 and click on this video and they go, man, these people were like inviting people to talk to them, and now there's no way I could contact StefenGalaxy. This, like, I don't know if that's gonna happen or not, but
yeah,
that's the goal, right? That's why we make this content.
I'm a little busy right now.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we're just talking out my ass.
I have 10 viewers on Twitch. I'm a little busy.
Our whole friend group has said this to you. You're so good at this. It's just a matter of people noticing you. You're so good at when you're live streaming.
Listen, that's it. Look, it's everyone's problem on the internet. Every content creator's problem is discoverability. Unfortunately, whether it's YouTube or Twitch or SoundCloud potentially, it is not a meritocracy. There are people that are amazing that get no viewers, and there are people who are fucking dog shit who are there from 8 years ago, and then they just have like 1,000 people watching them. It is what it is, But all you can do is just grind it out.
But the good
that's
equalizer.
what Mama used to say.
But the good equalizer is.
Well, how do you know what my mom used to say? What's the equalizer? Tell me what the equalizer is.
Is people's attention. They go to the latest thing. And if you're right, like if people are watching some dog shit streamer that's only got famous because they were on the platform years ago, granted, but yet that person has the OG status where the person who literally goes to Twitch stream because they own a barbershop or a gaming whatever, they're like, oh, I just like this person, so I leave them on all day. And like, all right, but we're talking about discoverability. We're talking about new content creators grinding in the game. And when it comes to indie gaming, variety streaming, you're doing things that people haven't been ever done because of your personality type. You can get people's attention. Once you make enough content, people will watch a couple videos. They'll be like, I hate that guy at first. And then like, nah, actually he's pretty cool. I actually like
that's all we can hope for, rising tides and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. Good night. I think we're done, right? You don't want to say anything else? All right.
No, that's all I wanted to say. Fuck these people.
Bye forever.
Turn it off.